Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Yeah. Okay. So good evening. So the last class we have done with agriculture, and today we'll take the connected topic, that is irrigation. That means which is related to agriculture itself. So the main points which I'll be covering is that what is irrigation, why irrigation is needed, and what are various irrigation projects. That is what the main topics that are covered for your syllabus as such. So when we say that irrigation, uh, basically we say that India is an agricultural country. Like last topics we discussed that more than two-thirds of the people depend on agriculture, three-fourths of the people get their income from agriculture. Basically, being an agricultural country, it is essential that is a main important thing in order to cultivate crops is water. So how do we get continuous supply of water is that we discussed that also under characteristics is that there are two types of cultivated areas. One type of cultivated area is dependent only on monsoon, and a certain part of the area is dependent upon the irrigation. And wherever irrigation is there, we said that agriculture is productive, agriculture is prosperous also. So agriculture will be better, or we call it as prosperous, wherever irrigation or wherever there is abundant water, continuous supply of water is there, agriculture will thrive. So it is highly risky in our country. The major problem is that agriculture basically depends upon the monsoon, and if the monsoon fails, agriculture also will be. That means there will be scarcity of food grains, or there will be less production of the main important crops also. So let us first talk about why do we need irrigation? What are the reasons for having irrigation in the country? Because first thing is we have inadequacy of rainfall. Sometimes the rainfall is total. I don't know how many of you have read the reports as such that IMD, that is the Indian Meteorological Department, always gives a saying that the monsoon, so much of monsoon has come, so many millimeters water has come, and at the end of southwest monsoon, they announced that these areas did not get this areas got scarcity of rainfall. They did not get normal rainfall. Some got excess rainfall. These are the areas which you call it as inadequacy of rainfall. Some areas get surplus water, some areas get moderate water, and some areas do not get any water at all. It is first thing. Second is uncertainty. Like I told you that our monsoon actually has to start from June, continue till September. But sometimes it so happens that June, July also we don't get the rainfall. We get rainfall only in August and September. So uncertainty, we don't know whether the rainfall will come or not. Second one is that sometimes even if there is good rainfall also, like we discussed that India has only southwest monsoon where the rainfall is only from June to September. After that we don't get rainfall. So in order to see that even if you are getting good rainfall also, you have to store the water, you have to supplement water in these areas so that agriculture can go on. Then seasonal occurrence of rainfall. Just now the same point I mentioned that only certain areas. Basically, India gets rainfall only from June to September. Northeast monsoon, the entire country does not get. Entire country gets rainfall only from the southwest monsoon. Next one is that to safeguard against the drought. Suppose this year there is very good rainfall. Next year there is no rainfall. Drought will be there. So you have to store the water so that the water can be utilized for the next season also. Next, increase the agricultural production through multiple cropping system. Suppose if you want to go for two, three crops at the same time, then you should have proper irrigation. If you don't have proper irrigation, you cannot go for multiple cropping system. Multiple cropping means two, three crops at the same time in the same area where the farmer can divide the land into three parts, two parts, and try to grow two, three crops at the same time. Then also suppose you want to go for the best cropping pattern, or you want to adopt call it as new methods, new crops, new methods of cultivation, the irrigation is required there. So plus effective utilization of the fallow land. So there is a definition of fallow land. A fallow land is that which is not cultivated for a period of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. fallow land it is called as, when it is not cultivated for 1 year, 2 years or 5 years also. 1 to 5 years, if the farmer does not grow any crop in that particular land, it will be called as a fallow land access. So for all these reasons, irrigation is essential. Then what are the advantages? If you develop irrigation, what is that you're going to get? That is perennial rivers. That means India is fortunate for having a number of geographical advantages. One is that we have perennial rivers. Can anyone tell me what do you mean by perennial rivers? Yes, students. What do you mean by perennial rivers? Perennial means which flow throughout the
Throughout the
year.
year, ma'am.
Very good. Which flow throughout the year. That is the Ganga, the Indus, and the Brahmaputra
Brahmaputra. Yeah.
are called as the perennial rivers because they flow throughout the year. Next, we also have suitable sites for construction of the dams. One more important thing is that Ganga, you can construct a number of dams, but Brahmaputra, you cannot construct any dams. Why? You do not have a proper place. See, when you want to construct a dam, you should have a proper land area over there. Topography should be there. Actually, Brahmaputra flows through very uneven surfaces. When it is flowing through uneven surfaces, you cannot construct a dam. So mostly in our country, except for Brahmaputra, if you take the rest of the rivers, if you take, the land is suitable for the construction of the dams. Third one is that you should also have suitable topography for the construction of tanks or canals or whatever it is. Then next is availability of the groundwater is also very important, and also these are certain important geographical advantages we have. Now, when we say irrigation, there are three types of and sources of irrigation. One is called as the well irrigation, canal irrigation, and the tank irrigation. I don't know whether they will go into detail or not. Just I'll tell you what are the differences between canal, tank, and well irrigation. Well irrigation, that is, it is a traditional system of irrigation which existed from ages in our country. Even now also, if you take, go to the remote villages everywhere, the farmer will have his own well in his own farm, wherein he will be utilizing that water for cultivating the crop. Of course, nowadays they are all going for bore wells and other things, but earlier they used to only go for the well irrigation, wherein they will dug the well in their own farm and that water will be utilized for cultivation of the crops. This is the most widely distributed source of irrigation in India. That means utilization of the groundwaters at the shallow depths. That means if you dig the well, you need not go to the deepest layers of the earth, but shallow. That means a little below, if you go, you will be able to find the water in the well. So shallow depths by means of well is an important source and an ancient system of irrigation that existed in our country also. Now, why do they go for well irrigation? Is that because of rainfall? One is that maybe there is no proper rainfall in that particular area, and also there are no canal irrigation also. I will explain when I'm saying that. When I will again, I'll come back to that particular point. So precarious rainfall conditions, that means less amount of rainfall, or there is no canal irrigation that is available. That is the reason why the government tries, the farmer tries to utilize the or tap the subsurface water for cultivating his own crops as such. Now, as such, nowadays, if you have, for example, oil engines, electrical pump sets, you have drilling machines in the place of traditional. That means, how many of you have an idea? Earlier, for example, if you take, people used to take the water, they will use the pulley and all that, and they used to take the water. You must have seen that particular system.
Yes,
You all
ma'am.
must be aware that they used to draw the water by putting the bully and
Placing
putting the bucket and then drawing the water. But today it is not like that. They are fixing up these electrical pump sets, and they are fixing the pipe by which the water automatically will be coming out. So this is also becoming more comfortable, by which well irrigation is becoming very, very popular for the farmer because he need not depend upon the canal irrigation as such. Am I clear with this well irrigation? Yeah. Then the next one is canal irrigation. canal irrigation actually came into existence because of the network of major rivers that are present in our country, and the government of India constructing a number of multi-purpose projects, because of which the canal irrigation has come. Now, when we travel, usually when we are traveling in a bus, you can see that a particular canal, a small canal will be flowing, and we'll be seeing that particular canal from the entire village. You must, how many of you have noticed that particular canal flowing? See, when we travel by the bus, usually we see to in the village areas, if you talk, for example, a canal will be flowing continuously. How many of you have seen at least? Any idea?
Yes, ma'am, I have seen.
Yeah, usually that canal, what is that canal is that it is actually coming from the dam side. Maybe there is a multi-purpose project nearby, and the government will make the canals. And after making that canal, the farmer has to make that particular and divert that water to his crop or his farmland as such. Now, when he is doing that, he will be paying some amount of money to the government because he is using the water. So the water will be supplied by the government, but not free of cost. Some amount of money should be paid for it. But you have to make that diversion route to your thing. So this is what is a canal irrigation, which is very, very popular nowadays. You must be knowing about the Nagarjuna, especially if you talk about Karnataka, then you talk about Andhra, Telangana, if you talk, they all talk about this Krishna River and the Godavari River. All the states usually share this water for drinking purposes as well as for irrigation purposes also. So especially this particular canal irrigation is more prevalent in the Great Plains, that is the Indo-Gangetic Plain, because I said they are the perennial rivers over there. But in Peninsular India, what is Peninsular India? Which is Peninsular India?
Ma'am, the south part of India mostly.
The southern part of India is called as a peninsular India, and in all the peninsular India, the rivers are seasonal. Seasonal means,
Only when there is rainfall, the flow will be there. Otherwise, it will be.
and during the summer season, they shrink into a small pond like the entire Godavari. If you travel during the months of May and June, if you take, you don't find water over there. You only find a small pond over there. That means they totally dry up during the summer season. So in the peninsular India, all the rivers are seasonal, and in order to ensure water supply in the dry season, the river water is stored at suitable places. How many of you have seen a multi-purpose project as such? A Nagarjuna Sagar project, or you talk about Akrangal project or Srisalem project, you must be seen the bridge, and then you have the gates, they call it as floodgates, they call it as, where the water will be released from that. How many of you have seen that Nagarjuna Sagar project or something like that?
I have seen both Nagarjuna Sagar and
Actually, you
Srisailam.
have this gates, you have the floodgates. Why others are not answering anything? Yashashwini, Pearly, why, what happened? Only Padma is very active in the class. Good, Padma. Others also, please talk, children. Huh? Hello, Yashashwini, Pearly. You should also give answers. You should also participate, no? Yeah. So canal irrigation is very popular in peninsular India because most of the rivers are seasonal, and to ensure a continuous flow of water, a number of dams have been constructed. The water is then distributed to the neighboring fields through the channel. That's what I told you. They are called as the canal channels, they call it as. So from the dam side, the government will be making a canal into the village. Now, from the village, the farmer has to make a canal to the field. So all the farmers can pull up and then make a canal by which they can divert that water to their field, but for which they have to pay the money. It's not free of cost also. So the government is helping the farmers, maybe not a very costly one, but at least some amount they should be paying as such. So by this, the government is trying to help the farmers so that they can cultivate their lands without. I don't know how many of you have heard that also. The government usually announces that the water will be released into the fields so and so date. They give the date also. They tell the farmers also that when the water will be released into the canals, because suddenly if they release the water, what will happen?
If they are not aware of that, then they can't utilize it properly.
Utilize the water, plus the water is left, means the entire crop will be submerged under the water. No, it is waste for them.
Yes, ma'am.
So that also will be a problem. So the farmers, the irrigation department and the agricultural department will decide as to when the water has to be released, and the farmer has to take steps in order to see that the water will be utilized properly. What you said is also correct, Patni. When he say when the water is left, for example, the farmer is not aware, then the water is wasted. Or the second thing is that the crop may be submerged under the water. This is what you call it as a canal irrigation. Okay, there are two types of canals. One is called as the inundation canal, the other one is called as a perennial canal. What is an inundation canal is that beside the river, they create one particular canal, I think, by which whenever there are floods, no, the entire water will fall into this canal, and that water is diverted towards the fields. This type of canals are mostly popular in Punjab and Haryana. But what is a major disadvantage of inundation canals is that if there are floods only, you get the water. Otherwise, there is, because the water will directly flow. You all know that when the rainfall comes, the water level increases in all the rivers. So the extra water will be coming out. So that particular water will flow into these canals, and these canals take the water to the, from these canals, the water flows to the fields. So this type of inundation canals are very popular in Punjab and Haryana. But the major disadvantage is that they dry up once the floods are over. But what are perennial canals is that uh, they are constructed by putting a dam. That means by constructing a dam, like I told you just now, I explained that there will be a dam. They usually close the floodgates. Once that particular dam is over, they close the gates. They store the water and release the water whenever is required. That is called as a perennial canals, which are constructed after putting. So we have a number of perennial canals, like for example, the Upper Ganga, the Agra, the Sarada, Eastern Yamuna, then you have the Betwa, then the Ken rivers. These are all the important canals we have. You can remember one of few names as such. Ganga is one, which is very popular for the perennial canals also. Then you have the Upper Bari Doab, the Bhakra Nangal, the Bikaner canals in Punjab. Then you have the Rajasthan canal in Rajasthan. Then you have Damodar. Then you have Krishna, Godavari, Tungabhadra canal systems in Andhra Pradesh, Periyar and Mettur canal systems in Tamil Nadu. These are all the biggest. If you can remember a few names also, it's enough. Okay, you can remember Bhakranangal, you can remember Damodar, you can remember Krishna, Godavari, Tungabhadra. These are all examples of canal irrigation. Then the third one we talk about is tank irrigation. What is a tank irrigation is that this is usually popular in Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau region has irrigation for the tanks. What they do is that they dig something, they dig lower things, and they try to store the water in that. The water, the rainfall, whatever comes, will be stored in that. Because the soil is very coarse here, they hold the water for a longer period of time. Like I said, the Deccan Plateau region mostly does not receive much rainfall as such. So they have this tank irrigation, which is very popular with the Deccan Plateau region only we have. That is, the Deccan Plateau is mostly Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, all these areas, sorry, Telangana, all these areas will be coming in that as such. Am I clear with that? That means they will be able to store the water for a longer period of time. Actually, this is all not there, but still, sometimes if we get a question, you can talk about it. Okay. All the three are clear. Irrigation by wells, irrigation by canals, and irrigation by tanks. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then coming to the concept of what are the various dams you have. I think they are asking you the major multi-purpose projects. So I think ma'am will be sending you the notes, but I will be telling you what are the major projects we have in our country, which are also called as the, we have major irrigation projects, medium irrigation projects, and minor irrigation projects. This you remember with the hectares. Major irrigation projects are those with a command area of more than 10,000 hectares. That means which are the major projects, means which will be giving water, supplying water to areas which 10,000 hectares it is called as, constructed across the rivers, main rivers they are constructed, like the Bhakra Nangal or the Krishna, Godavari, all these are the major irrigation projects. Command area of how many hectares? 10,000.
10,000.
10,000 hectares. Medium irrigation projects are those which are irrigated with a command area of 2,000 to 10,000 hectares, which are also constructed across the rivers and the tributaries also. Like for example, if you take River Krishna has number of tributaries like the Ghataprabha, then you have the Musi, all these are the
Tungabhadra.
yeah, you have so many tributaries as such. So medium irrigation projects are constructed across the rivers and the tributaries, and major irrigation projects are constructed only across the rivers. Then you have the minor irrigation projects which have command areas only 2,000 hectares. So first one is 10,000, second one is 2,000 to 10,000, minor is only 2,000 hectares. These schemes include the groundwater, surface water schemes, like for example, shallow tube wells, then you have the wells, pump sets, all these are the examples. There is no dam for this. Minor irrigation projects usually come under the tank irrigation. The tank irrigation, the well irrigation, the tube wells, all these are for your bore wells also will come under the minor irrigation projects only. Am I clear with that? All the three?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. Now, coming to the projects which you have to remember is the Bhakra Nangal project. Name of the project, state. Very important is a state. Where it is constructed, you should know. Bhakra Nangal project, it is named after two dams called as the Bhakra and the Nangal, which is built across the Sutlej river. So, river also. Name of the project, river, state. 3 points you have to remember for each and every multi-purpose project. So I repeat again, Bhakra Nangal project, which is constructed across the Sutlej, and it is across the Sutlej at Bhakra and Nangal in Himachal Pradesh. So where is it? It is in Himachal Pradesh. Okay, it is a joint venture of Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan also. Okay, Bhakra Nangal project, Sutlej, constructed at Bhakra and Nangal in Himachal Pradesh. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next one is the BEAS project. BEAS. BEAS project is that it will be linking the BEAS and the Sutlej rivers, consists of BEAS Sutlej link and BEAS dam constructed across BEAS at Pond, that is Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan. BEAS project, it is usually main one is Rajasthan. I'll repeat once again. It will link the BEAS and the Sutlej rivers. Okay, and it is constructed at across BEAS at a place called as Pong, P-O-N-G. Next, you have the Damodar Valley project. It is also called as the DVC, Damodar Valley Corporation. It is called as. Okay. It consists of a series of the dams and the tributaries of the Damodar River in Bihar. It is in Bihar. Okay, across the Damodar River, and it is administered. Actually, two states are doing this. One is West Bengal, the other one is Bihar. But the river is in Bihar. Project is also in Bihar, but the water is shared by both of them. Then you have the Hirakud project. It is constructed across Mahanadi near Sambalpur in Odisha. Okay. Next, you have the Nagarjuna Sagar project built across Krishna near Nandikonda village in Nalgonda district of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, you have to remember the name also, Nalgonda district of Andhra Pradesh. Then you have the Tungabhadra project. It is built across. Now, actually, when you talk about Nagarjuna Sagar project, it is equally, the water is shared equally by Andhra and Telangana. Both the states will be sharing. Earlier, it was one Andhra Pradesh, so it was only called as Andhra Pradesh, but now you call it as Andhra and Telangana. Then you have Tungabhadra project. It is built across Tungabhadra at Mallapur in Bellary district of Karnataka state. It is shared, the water is shared by Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Bellary district it is Mallapur. Then you have Kosi project. It is built across Hanuman Nagar on the Indo-Nepal border. Kosi project. It is an international project. One more thing you have to remember. Of all these features, Kosi project is an international project. It is administered by India, but the benefits are shared by India, that is Bihar and Nepal. Okay, international project. So it is constructed at Hanuman Nagar on the Indo-Nepal border. Water is shared by Bihar and Nepal. Next one is Chambal project. It is built across Chambal and consists of 3 dams, and it is shared by Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Okay, Chambal project. Then you have the Gandak project. It is a barrage across Gandak in Balmik Nagar in Bihar. So Bihar has so many projects. Okay, joint execution of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Nepal also will get benefit from it. So to a certain extent, it is also an international project also. Then you have the Ram Ganga project. It is constructed across Ram Ganga in Uttar Pradesh. It is in Uttar Pradesh one only. So these are all the major multi-purpose projects. One more thing. What is a multi-purpose project? When I say multi-purpose project means which provides a number of benefits: drinking water, generation of electricity, supply of water to the agricultural purposes. It also has ecotourism. Then it also gives income for tourism. So, like for example, if you go to these particular dam sites, the tourists visit all these places. It also becomes a tourist spot also by providing the revenue. So, generation of electricity is one. Then the other one is providing drinking water as well as to the fields also. So these are all the various projects. So once again, I'll repeat: Bhakranangal project, Bees project, Damodar Valley project, Hirakud, Nagarjuna Sagar, Tungabhadra, Kosi, Chambal, Gandak, Ramganga project. These are all called as the major multi-purpose projects in our country. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Irrigation and agriculture clear? Okay, then next we'll talk about is industries. Now, when we say, actually, I have to start with minerals. I think we have minerals also. I think which one I should start, I will see. Uh-huh. Otherwise, I'll start off with manufacturing industries. After that, we'll go to minerals. Okay. Now, when we say industries, why do we say industries, or what is the importance of manufacturing industries when we say that? What is the importance of industries? That means when goods are produced in large quantities for after processing from the raw materials to more valuable products, it is called as manufacturing. So why do we use a word called as manufacturing? Is that where we will produce vast quantities of goods or large quantities of goods after processing of all the raw materials into valuable products is called as manufacturing. What do you mean by valuable product? Is that, like for example, rubber is a raw material. Okay, that rubber is drawn from agriculture, then it is taken to the industries, then it is transformed into a tire. Tire is not a final product because we don't use tires as such. But when it is put onto the automobiles, or we call it as a cycles or cars or whatever it is, then it becomes a valuable product which you call it as a final product. So this process is referred to as the manufacturing as such. So paper is manufactured from wood. Okay, and then sugar is from the sugar cane, iron and steel from iron ore. These are all the various examples you can give how it is transformed as such. Okay, so people employed in the secondary activities. Actually, we have 3 sectors of the economy called as a primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Primary sector is basically we talk about the agriculture, where they use all the natural products which are extracted from the nature. They don't provide any ready-made products. Whatever is available, like for example, all the crops, or you call about the animal stock. We talk about the animal husbandry or the animal products like milk, meat, eggs, fish. All these are called as a primary sector. What is a secondary sector? Is that whatever things are extracted from the primary sector, they are given to the secondary sector, and the secondary sector will use some method by which they will be transforming these particular raw materials into finished products or valuable products. Just now I gave you the example, like sugar is made from sugarcane, paper is made from wood. You cut the trees and then you make the paper. That is why they say that don't waste the paper as such, because you have to cut a number of trees in order to make the paper. Okay, these are all the examples we give. So sugarcane is cut, harvested, and then it is brought to the sugar industry. Then the sugar industry, in the sugar industry, the sugarcane is processed, by which you will be getting sugar as well as wood also, and then you also get some molasses also. So these are all the final products which are transformed from the raw materials which are available. This is what the secondary sector actually does as such. So the economic strength of a country is measured by the development of the manufacturing industries. That means sir was explaining about consumer index and all that. It is nothing but we are talking about the economic development of the country. Like for example, you take the present situation where they are saying that the consumers are not spending anything. If the consumers are not spending anything, like once again, when we go back to economics, if there is no demand, there is no production. If there is no production, there is no income. If there is no income, the country will be going back to, or it will become backward country as such. So the economic strength of a country is measured with the development of manufacturing industries. More and more manufacturing industries means the people are buying more and more goods, and then production is increasing. If production is increasing, definitely it will increase the GDP of the country also. So sir was telling that I will explain about GDP. What is GDP? Is that the total production of goods and services in the three sectors: primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. And the amount which is generated from the three sectors is what is called as the GDP of the country. Now, for the past 2 years, our GDP is going down because there is no production. We are under constant lockdown. We are facing a pandemic. There is no production. There is no demand. Everything came to a standstill. So basically, what happens? The GDP will come down because there is no production. If there is no production, what will you buy? And there is no demand also. So these are all interlinked concepts we talk about. So how do you know the economic strength of a country? Why G7 countries are called as a developed countries? Because they have lots of manufacturing industries. Like we talk about USA, UK, Australia, Canada, Italy, Germany, Spain. All these countries are called as the G7 countries of the world, which contribute about 33% to the world GDP. Highest contributors of GDP are Japan and USA only. Maximum, that means 30 to 35% of GDP is contributed by US and Japan only. And next comes China. China also has lots of manufacturing industries. That's why we all depend upon China. China supplies all the raw materials to all the countries. They have lots of manufacturing sector where India is lacking. So if you have manufacturing industries, that means you are having a very good economy. Okay, manufacturing industries is nothing but where we manufacture everything on our own. We don't import anything. That is why Modi has brought about the concept called as Atmanirbharta. Atmanirbharta is nothing but self-reliance, where you manufacture everything by yourself. You don't import anything, because we depend on the raw material coming from China. China supplies to entire world whatever it is. That is the reason why after the pandemic, all the countries want to move away from China, make it isolated so that it will depend on other countries. That is the reason why all these concepts are interrelated concepts. Geography, economics, politics, everything is interrelated concepts. Yes, can I continue to the next one more? So the economic strength of a country is measured with the development of the manufacturing industries. How well you manufacture, or how many industries are there, how are you going to develop that particular sector is very important. So what is the importance of manufacturing? Why should a country have manufacturing industries? First and foremost is that they help in modernizing agriculture, okay, which forms the backbone of our economy, and they also reduce the dependence of the people on agricultural income by providing the jobs. Like in agriculture lesson, I told you that 2/3 of the people are employed in that, and 3/4 of the people derive their income from agriculture. So if manufacturing sector or industries have been set up, then you can pull some of the people from there and put them in the industries. That means you create the jobs, you also try to give more income, as well as you try to modernize agriculture. Like I told you that in our country, most of the farmers use traditional methods. They don't use tractors, they don't use fertilizers, they don't use any new implements. They're still following the old and traditional methods, which once upon a time our great grandfathers, our grandfathers used. The same methods they are using. So if manufacturing industries are there, they will try to provide all these agricultural implements which are required. The modern equipment, like we call it as the pump sets, or you talk about the drilling machines, or you talk about the farm implements, whatever it is will be provided by the industries. So they create jobs, they also provide income to the people, plus they also modernize agriculture. Second one is that if industrial development is there only, you can eradicate unemployment and poverty. Why today we are having so much of unemployment is that because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, most of the industries are closed down, as a result of which today unemployment is very high. So if industries are developed, you will be able to create more number of jobs. If jobs are there, income is there, poverty definitely will come. So these two are again interlinked concepts. Establish number of industries, create jobs, give employment to the people. If you give employment, definitely poverty also will come down. So these two are considered to be precondition. Establishment of industries or industrial development is a condition for eradication of unemployment or poverty in the country. This was the reason why before 1991, the government of India gave a lot of importance to public sector and also joint ventures in India. That is the time when a number of public sector industries have come into existence. Like you have all the steel plants were set up in our country at that time. A number of government offices, like we call it as the BHEL, the IBPL, or ECIL, these were all the big public sector companies that were established by the government of India. Then also they try to bring down the disparities in the backward areas also by establishing the industries in the tribal and the backward areas. Like for example, if you take Rourkela, or you talk about Bhilai, or you talk about Durgapur, or you talk about Jamshedpur, all these areas are very interior areas, but still steel plants were set up over there so that you can reduce the disparities. Now you cannot say that all industries should be established in cities, and what will happen to the interior areas? That means they will never be developed. That means one area is developed, one area is not developed. You don't call it as balanced development. If you want balanced development, you should set up your industries both in the rural areas as well as in the urban
Ma'am,
areas.
this meeting will end now. Shall we
Okay.
continue? Yeah, or will you summarize?
I'll summarize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any doubts, ma'am? Clear?
No, ma'am.
Aditi, Padma, Pearly, Yashashwini.
No, ma'am.
No? Clear? Everything is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Dear children, next week we will not be having classes. Yeah, it's holiday for you. We will meet that next weekend. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other doubts you can go through? It's from 10th standard, ma'am.
Yeah. 10th standard only.
10th standard, yeah. Irrigation,
Yes.
right?
Irrigation as well as manufacturing industries. No, irrigation only you do, because manufacturing industries are just started. I'll continue next week again.
Yes.
Irrigation, let them go.
Yes.
Yeah. Go through the map also. The map also is very important. Go through the map also. I think I put the map also in the notes. I think Shailaja, you can forward it. I think.
Yeah.
Irrigation. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, children.
Thank you.
Thank you, children. We will meet next week. Be there. Thank you.